Once you have coded any data, edited it, and done any necessary transformations, the next step is to really get a feel for your data set to start looking for patterns. One of the best ways to do that is to use pivot tables. We have 3 pivot table tasks that we're going to do in this video together. The first is we want to insert a pivot table that tells us how many people did not smoke, how many people were smokers in count, and then also do it in percentage. I'm going to place all my pivot tables over here, right beside the original data set. Because I want to find information on people, whether they're a smoker or not, the first thing I'm going to do is check that are you currently a smoker box, and it will appear in the rows so I can see yes or no. Then I'm going to also drag that variable into the values. That will quickly give me the count of the number of people that said yes, they are a smoker, only 5, and 25 people said no, they were not. So that is task 1, all finished. However, we also want a percentage. So what I can do is actually drag that same thing into the table again, that we have a second count. But this time, I'm going to click on this little drop-down menu from count of are you a smoker and go to value field setting. There I'm going to change this to show values as, and instead of no calculation, I want a percent of the total. That will then give me that 25 out of 30 is 83% of the respondents said that they did not smoke, about 17% said that they did smoke. The next piece of information that we want to look at is how many people fall into each category for when they first tried tobacco. So again, I'm going to make sure I'm clicked on my Insert tab, press Pivot Table, and place this in the existing worksheet right below my other pivot table that answered the first question. But this time, out of all of my variables, if I want information on how old people were when they first used this tobacco product, that's the question that I need to single out or check in my pivot table information. I'm then also going to take that same variable and drag it down into the values, because that will automatically count up how many people are in each category. As we can see, most people that answered the questionnaire were between 14 and 16 years old. Finally, there's one more question, and that is to look for patterns between people's gender and when they first tried tobacco products. Again, I'm going to insert a pivot table right on the side of the main table. And this time, because I want patterns between gender, I'm going to press the gender box. And I want patterns with how many cigarettes they smoke per day. So I'm going to check that box too. As you can see, they automatically both go in the rows, and that can make it a little hard to read. So I always recommend putting one into the columns. It actually doesn't matter what order you put it in, because if you put the number of cigarettes in the columns, you'll see the headings pop up there for the 4 different categories. But you could swap it too and have man versus woman or prefer not to say in the columns and the smoking status in the rows as well. The order actually does not matter. Usually it's whatever is most visually appealing. The one with more categories typically is better to put in the rows. One thing I did notice is that there's 2 man repeated for gender. And if I go back into my filter option, I'm not seeing it pop up. So it must be because there's some with a space after the word man. So see, this one just says man with no space, man with no space. This one has man with a space. So that space is actually what's causing all of the problems. So what I can do is click on my pivot table. Now that I have erased that space, go to Pivot Table Analyze and press the refresh button. And it should get rid of that extra man heading that I had. So now I've only got man, women, or prefer not to say for the genders. For either of the variables that are selected, it doesn't actually matter which one you choose. You then just need to drag one of them into the values, and it will automatically give you the count of the people in both of those categories. This will allow me to look for patterns. So from what I can see, most women seem to be non-smokers. We had a lot of women non-smokers. For people who were light smokers, both of them were men. The heaviest smokers were women, and moderate smokers, we had 1 man and 1 woman. It seems like we had a lot more women in general responding to the questionnaire. 19 of them were women, and most of the people responding were non-smokers. So those are some of the patterns we can try to look into more based off of this initial analysis in the pivot table. So pivot tables are just meant to help you generate ideas for what you should explore further in terms of maybe making some different graphs and visualizations, or actually calculating some values with things that are quantitative like age. And that's what we're going to explore more in depth in Excel in the next couple of lessons. The important thing to take away for now is that pivot tables are a really useful tool that you can use to try to just get a feel for your data, but only after you've done your coding, editing, and transformation.